Hello, this is Jordan Fisher from the Tech Center. Today we are going to do the third episode of MeanStack Basics. The goal for this episode is really just to, we're just gonna start coding and see how far we get. So last episode we created this nice little order app folder. It actually, Express Generator created it for us. Made us this nice little folder tree with all the different stuff in it. So we can go into that now, and if you are using Visual Studio Code, you can just right click and open with code in the folder, and that will get us all set up to go. I've already created this file main.html. That's actually not what we're going to be using, so we can just get rid of that. I'll just delete it. And there we go. So if we remember, this is what our little app looks like. Okay, I have here the code for that. So if I just copy all that out of there later and make a new file and call it main.html and paste all that in, save it, come in here, public, open it. Looks pretty terrible because this is all client side, not using any of the Bootstrap or Angular or anything. So instead what we are going to do is delete all of that, and we are going to get started with our routes first. Actually, let's look over these files. So this is the app.js file. It is where everything happens. Actually, that's not true. In this bin www, this is what happens when, if I open the command prompt, I'll shift right click, open command window here. If I do nodemon, which is how we're going to start this, oh, there's an update. Okay, well, I guess I will npm install -g nodemon. Alright, so it's going to update that. Anyway, this is what nodemon's going to run when we do nodemon. So first it creates the app requiring this app file here. Then it grabs debug, so it can give us debug messages, and it grabs HTTP. That'll be the basis for the HTTP server. So let me go ahead and run nodemon here. What is wrong with it? Oh. There we go. Then we get the port that it's going to run on, and we set the app's port. Then we create the HTTP server with var server equals http.createServer using the app. And it's going to listen on that port that we set up there. So that's why we type in :3000. Obviously you could change that. If there's an error, it's going to call this function down here, and once it is listening, then it is going to call this function down here, which just says that it is listening. And it's also going to start the app. So it gets express, path, serve favicon, Morgan, cookie parser, and body parser. And then this routes file. The routes is what we are going to mess with first. So right now in routes we have index.js and users.js. So let's look at the index one, because that's the one it's looking at. So it grabs express and it gets the router from express, and so router.get, so when there's a get request to /, it's going to call this function with the request, the response, and what to do next. So what it's doing is it's rendering to the response the file index, which is going to be our views index.ejs with the title of express. So let's look at index.ejs. Looks like a pretty normal HTML file, except this little thing right here. Anywhere that it has this little doodad marker, whatever you want to call it, and title, it's going to show the title that it was passed in. So it's passed in the title express, so it's going to show express over here, which is why now that I've started it up, if I go to the one we're working on, it says express as the title, it shows express as the header, and it says welcome to express. Okay, so that is that, and then it exports the router back to the app, which then uses routes. So when it says requires the index file, this one here, this is what it sends back, the router. And then it says to use slash for that, okay? So what we want to do instead is make this our head page. So we are going to keep this whole part, we are going to keep that, but we're going to add a little something else. We are going to add in Bootstrap. So the rel equals style sheet. The href is not going to be anything there. Instead, it is going to be the Bootstrap thing here. Grab that and paste it in there and do that right there. And now if we reload it here, I'm not sure what it's doing, but I think it did get it. Let's stop it and reload it. There it goes. It got bootstrap.min.css. So now we have Bootstrap to work with. So if we wanted, so that's why the text looks different now, because it has Bootstrap. So instead of that, let's look at what we want it to do. I want to have this fancy little title bar up here. For that, I'm going to copy out of this file, and I guess I'll just copy right from there. Copy. That was the body. Paste. Alright, there we go. So now we have some different things, some different classes and containers in the navigation bar. So feel free to go ahead and actually let's just go over it. So we have the body with ng app, so that's from Angular. So for that, we are going to need to grab these Angular scripts that are going to go right there. Okay, so we'll have our Angular, and then there's a div with an ID of man and a class of container, and then there's a nav with navbar, so this is all Bootstrap. And we have the home, we have what it says there, and then there's some interesting stuff here. ng hide, so that means it will hide when authenticated equals true. So we haven't created any of this yet. Basically that's saying when there's a user logged in, it's not going to show the login button or the register button. And ng show basically means it will show when this is true. So when you are authenticated, it'll show the logout button, and it'll show you that you're signed in as current user, that username, and their job. So we will get into all that later, but let's see how it looks now. If we reload now, it still says express at the top, and we will change that. And you'll notice that none of this is doing anything, although it should have gotten, yeah, it did get Angular, I don't know why. Oh, it's probably because current user doesn't exist. but we will be working on that later on as we do that stuff. Yeah, see, it couldn't find order app. It doesn't know that exists. And then going further down, we have a kind of main view, and then there's just nothing. And we will see what we're going to put in that nothing in a bit. But first, I think there's a little more code for me to copy. No, okay. Actually, while I'm at it, I will just grab all of those because we are going to need them later. So I'll grab all those and paste them all. Alright, so now we have everything that we'll need for now, and I'm actually going to upgrade these to the latest versions. So let's open Angular here. It's on 147, so I'll change those to 1.4.7s. Socket.io probably has a new version. It is getting it from cdn.socket.io. Okay, welcome. Do they have a latest? Oh, there we go, 1.3.7. Alright, so that is now the latest version. I will actually post this all on a GitHub repo so you guys can see the code for this, and so you don't have to be trying to copy it all down while I'm doing this. So let's see how that looks now. Refresh it. It still is a little buggy, but that's just because we haven't finished doing that yet. You'll notice it still says Express up there. Now we are going to change that. If we remember correctly, it's under index, the title. Let's change that. And now it has the proper title. Okay, so there is our kind of basic users page. Now what these pages are for, these pages are going to render right in here in this ng view area. So right there is where that all is going to render. So if the Angular code tells it to use main, then it'll put whatever's in here on there. If it tells it to use login, then it'll put whatever's in the login page in there. Okay, so that's how that works, which is really cool. Now we are going to get around to setting up our Angular app. So this is our Angular app. I'm not going to copy and paste out of there because we don't need all of that yet, but it is under public. JavaScript's a new file that is called app.js. So we're going to var app equals angular.module. So that's just saying we're making an Angular app, and we're going to do that. Okay. So now it knows everything about Angular. That's a really neat feature of Visual Studio Code. Okay, so we are going to call it order app, and this right here is where we are going to add the different things, like the different packages, kind of like we're going to call in. So we're going to call in ng route. That's going to allow us to do this cool thing right here, which is the whole thing I was talking about, telling it which file to use, so whether it's going to use main, login, register, or manage.html, and ng resource, which is going to help when we're getting data. Okay, so let me scroll back up here. So that will take care of that, and then .run is what's going to happen when it starts, and that is going to take a function, and the root scope, we'll talk about scopes later, and $HTTP, which will just allow us to have connection, and do that right there. Okay, so the root scope is basically variables that are accessible anywhere inside our Angular app. So they'll be available here, which is where our authenticated and current user comes from, and they'll be available here in our main and in our login and all of that. So when we log in, we can set authenticated in our login, and we'll set it when we're on our login page, and then we'll also set it here so that we'll set authenticated here so that it'll show the correct buttons. So let's go ahead and authenticated equals false. It's going to start out false because you don't want to start logged in. And our root scope, and we're going to have a current user, and that's going to be an object, and it's going to have a username, and they're going to have a password so they can log in, and a job. Okay, so their job will be chef, server, manager, whatever. And then we can also make functions that can be called from everywhere. So root scope.signout, this is going to be used to log out, is a function, and $HTTP, so this allows us to do stuff. We're actually just going to do a get to /loss/signout, and we will set that up later. It won't do anything for now. And of course, when you sign out, you're no longer authenticated, so that needs to be set to false, and there's no longer a current user, so that needs to be reset to what we had it at before, and same with all this. Okay, so that is our sign out function. Now the next part we are going to do is this part right here. Okay, so app, that's that up, that's that up here, dot config. So it says use this method to register work which needs to be performed on module loading. So when it's loading, it'll run this. Okay, so this is going to be a function, and it's going to have route provider in it. So route provider is going to give us our routes for when to use what. Okay, so route provider, we'll just leave that there, and then tab in, come on, dot when, so when they go to slash, we are going to use a template URL of main.html. So when you go to slash, you're going to load main.html, and we're going to use the controller, which we'll be talking about later. Basically, they're the logic behind our apps. We're going to use the main controller. Okay, and that's all we're going to need for now. And so NodeMon restarted. If we reload it here, everything works fine and it doesn't show anything. But if we put something into our main.html, like an H1 that says hi there, then when we reload, there it is. So let's repeat what we did. We went into our routes and we just changed the title of it, what it was using. We went into our view, added all these different scripts that need to be moved back. So I'm going to move them all back. I'm going to move all of this. So we added all the scripts for various pieces we're going to need. JavaScripts and CSS style sheets. And there's where we're loading our app that's over there in Socket.io, Angular, Bootstrap, and our default style sheet. And then we have our ng app, let's order app. So that's this right here. We have our main class, our navigation bar that has the reference to slash. So you'll notice Angular does its weird thing where it puts the pound symbol and then wherever your route is. So // will take us to the home page. And there's that little part right there. And if authenticated equals false, so it hides this if authenticated is true. But since authenticated is false, it's not going to hide this, so it shows login or registered. This is only going to show if authenticated is true, but it's false, so we're not seeing the sign out or the who we're signed in as. And then down here we have our ng view, and inside of here is where this code is being put when we run. Okay, so I'll open this and we'll see there's our ng view, and inside there we have our little header. Okay, so let's save that and close it. And so there we have kind of the basis to that. So actually we're going to go ahead and put that code in there. So I will come up here and grab the code out of here now. So I'll just copy that, close that, and come in here and get rid of that and paste it. Alright, so first I'm going to reload it and we'll see that it looks good. It's a little interesting since we haven't gotten our controller yet. It's still going to show all this stuff. It won't do anything if we do put an order in, but it is going to show all this stuff because we haven't done anything in our controller to tell it to not do that. So we have a div here, and there's a form, and when we submit the form, it's going to call place order, and it's only going to show this form, the place an order form, if is server is true. We haven't created that yet, so of course it doesn't really care, and it's going to show it. So we're going to place an order. It's a header that says place an order, a text area, and this will be very useful later on. Basically this is saying when they type a key, if it's an enter, then we'll place the order, and if it's a shift enter, then we won't. Of course we don't have that yet, so just regular enter or shift enter goes down. I can show you this with on screen keyboard. There we go. Alright, so you see if we enter, it goes down, and if we shift enter, it still goes down. Okay, so it's required, so that means you have to put something in here. It's a form control, that's Bootstrap stuff. A max length of 200, I'm guessing just means you can only have 200 lines, although why you would need that many, I don't know. You know what? Max length probably refers to that way. How many characters that way? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, there's a max length of 200. It does something. And then we do a little styling on it, which really is a bad idea from in here, but yeah, whatever. The maximum width of 100%. It by default shows 3 rows, so 1, 2, 3. You can of course stretch it to come down this way, and that's what the kind of max width does. It withholds it from going out this way. And the placeholder text is new order. And the ng model. ng model is basically like it does two-way data binding. So when you type something in here, it changes a variable called new order. Or an object new order. It's text property. So anytime we type something in here, it'll change new order.text to whatever we type in here. And anytime we change new order.text, it'll change what's in here. So that's a really cool feature. And then we have our button pulled over to the right that places and submits the order. Then we have the spot where we see the list of orders that will only show if authenticated is true. And I guess it doesn't care about that either, probably because there's some kind of error. Yeah, there's an error. It cannot find main controller, so it's just not going to care what we do. So it's going to show it anyway. So it has our header that says the orders. And then this is interesting. This is a section that is class of order. So that's some CSS we'll be doing later. And then ng repeat. ng repeat is very useful. So it says here ng repeat order in order. So for every order, every object order in an array of objects called orders, it's gonna make one of these, okay? And it's gonna order by created at, and it's gonna reverse them. So basically that means whichever order was most recently created will always be at the top, okay? And ng class odd, so for all the odd ones, it can give them one class, in this case odd, and for every even class, it gives them even. And then, so for each order, we're going to have a paragraph with the order.text. We're going to have a small little thing, that tells who it's placed by, order.created by, so whoever made it, and a small pulled over to the right, so way over here, what time it was created at. And now this thing here is interesting. It's basically just going to format it into hour, minute, and then AM or PM, on, and then month. So that'll be like, right now it's November, so it'll be NOV, and then day, it's the 3rd, year, 2015 or 15 or something. And then this will show if we're not authenticated, but like I said, it doesn't care, so whether we are or not, it's going to show it anyway. This text right here, it's just a header with the danger, which makes it red, to the center that says you must log in to see and manage orders. And that's interesting. Let's change that bug. See if that makes it bigger. Okay, it doesn't. That's good. And that is all that is in the main.html file. And yeah, let's see, what else can we do here? I don't really want to start getting anything back end. Yeah, I think that's all we're gonna do for today. So if you guys liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. And you can also check out other videos in the Mean Stack Basics series up in your upper right hand corner. And yeah, I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.